He writes, I tuned in on YouTube and Mysonne is truly a liberal white woman. I would even say that fella Skittle guzzles Skittles. You know, there's no doubt that he's a liberal white woman, and they've created such a strong propaganda machine that is really hard to defeat. And in addition to that, for those convicts or crooks turned activists, of which there are many, you have the Charleston White, you have the Aaron the Plumber, you have the Mysonne. These are jailbirds who got out of jail, and immediately the question is, well, how do I earn? And so they end up starting a podcast, or they want to act like they're an activist, and they become a part of what I call the nonprofit industrial complex. And in the nonprofit industrial complex, the persons who are cutting their checks are liberal white women. You see, the difference between the left and the right is that the right is very much so prejudiced, racist in many cases. And so they're not going to go toward the blacks. They're more so like, hey, we're going to stay over here. If you blacks want to come over here, you can, but you have to behave like us. And we're going to be very explicit in our expectation of that. Conversely, the liberals, they expect you to behave like liberals, except they're far more diabolical and devious. It's in fact insidious. So the liberals, they won't hang back and wait till you come over to their side. What they'll actually do is they'll come to your side. They'll integrate themselves among you, and then they'll try to overtake you culturally and exercise significant levels of influence until they've stamped out all of your culture. And the only thing that you're left with is their culture and their ideas. And being that the blacks are largely uneducated, ignorant, and unfortunately many of them low IQ, and I can explain why that's increasingly the case in a bit, they think that the ways of the liberal white are ways that are exalted and are enlightened. And this is not only due to the foolishness and miseducation of the Negro, but also it is a result of the way that the liberals market themselves. They market themselves as enlightened reason and those who rely on science, which is comical because, you know, once you look under the hood, you find that very little of what they believe and promote respects science or even common sense. This is why they have those shows like Colbert, and I forget the other ones, but it's always some like, you know, skinny white dude or skinny white looking dude who's liberal. Or, you know, like even Trevor Noah is one such type. And what they do is they report on politics, but really they're just making fun of the right, of the conservatives, and suggesting that the conservatives are imbeciles and they're so much smarter and these people are so silly, we'll just laugh at them. And that's a very strong propaganda technique, which is to attempt to make a jester or a fool of the opponent such that they can't be taken seriously. This is chiefly the strategy of the left. And frankly, it's very effective with people of average and below average IQ, which is basically these United States of America. That's pretty much what they do. Part of it, I can't hate the fact that he's trying to get paid. There's just no doubt that there's a financial motivation for the behaviors of these persons. And sometimes they'll admit it, but mostly they're going to stay in character. You see, during that interview, I exposed quite a bit, though some of it might not have been caught by those watching. But one part that really should have stood out to you is when I said to him, why is it that you have lived an entire life, you've reached maturity, and not until you found yourself integrated in the midst of liberal whites, the ones who run Black Lives Matter, they run it and fund it, and the ones who control the Democratic Party and utilize you as a tool, just the way that Nicki Minaj is currently being utilized by the Trump administration to push the invasion of Nigeria. Not until then do you feel like you understand the world, as though your experiences for the first 30 years of your life were irrelevant. They were meaningless. Your experiences around Black and brown people, the ones you claim to care so much about, all of those experiences meant nothing. And the wisdom of your father and your mother and your grandparents, your elders, apparently didn't inform you on life. And this can only be a suggestion that the persons that you're now around, which is to say liberal whites, mostly liberal white women, and then of course the Skittle guzzlers, this is only a suggestion that their perspective is superior to those of your family, your friends, your culture. And so basically he's abandoned his culture wholesale. And now he's just the shell of his culture. You know, he wears the Yankee baseball cap to look like a rapper, but he doesn't have the mentality of a rapper. He doesn't have the things that we've always admired in the rapper, which is like the don't give a F spirit, the rebel spirit, the revolutionary spirit. He has none of those things. Now he's very much so just a lapdog of liberal white women, you know. And the reason that I'm so excited to have this conversation is because this ball says some of the most ludicrous, ridiculous stuff I've heard in a while. And it just hurt me so much because I'm not going to lie. Leading up to this, I thought, you know, he's probably like us. You know, he probably shares values because he's a rapper. He's a cat from the Bronx. You know, he did them a little bit. Maybe he's like me. We share values. And I should have known as soon as he said he was in the pen talking to the punks. I was like, oh, bro's a weirdo. That's what you don't do. And, you know, the good news is that we don't necessarily have to fight against this stuff verbally, because it's not going to be a war of words that leads to triumph. And that's one of the beautiful things about you all and myself, us together, that is that we're actually doing the work. You know, we might go back and forth and, you know, intellectual battle with some of these characters, but the good news is we're doing the work to create the world that we want to live in. So that's the beauty. Anyways, let's get after it.
So a lot of what you said I agree with, and a lot of what you said is false, in my opinion. Right? First of all, familiar. I don't have a white liberal mentality. White women, I've probably been around one or two white women my
Listen
whole
to
life.
that.
I've been around.
Now, how crazy does that sound? Lil Buddy said he's been around one or two white women his whole life. Now, that's bizarre. And in fact, in a place like New York, that's damn near impossible. It's just the level of exaggeration. And I kind of like, because it just shows that there's no credibility there.
Strong black women who were probably smarter than the men that they were around. I've been around strong black women who were smart.
And this is a clear indication of a sick male, one that is essentially a female in their thinking. Well, Marquette, why do you say that? The reason that I say that is because it is only the foolish, headstrong, testosterone-filled female who would describe herself as strong. And in fact, when you look at the efforts of the human female, most often, they're not trying to represent themselves as strong. They're trying to represent themselves as beautiful. The makeup, the surgeries, the enhancements, the fake eyelashes, the wigs. Beauty, sex appeal is the chief aim of the human female. So the ones that are speaking to strength, these are the ones that have been victim. They've been abused. They've been beaten. They were raised watching their mother get beaten. They're traumatized. And that is why they're operating in a dysfunctional way, with their primary thing that they're pushing out being strength, which is peculiar because strength is not something that attracts men. In fact, it's not even something that would attract a woman. I mean, you know, any woman that would pursue another woman is clearly mentally ill. But if a woman truly wanted strength, she wouldn't look for that in the human female, because the human female is, in fact, not very strong. So we're dealing in lies, essentially, wherein you have him describing women as strong. That's the most peculiar, bizarre way to describe the human female animal. Shout out to Wayne. He writes, I'm looking forward to this post-game review. Carry on, sir. Sir, yes, sir. Shout out to Alejandro. Writes, thank you, as always, for the game. Peace to the Saints. Oh, yes, we're going to get deep today. Shout out to Ramon. Writes, sending an email, Mr. Burton, due to the character limit. It get like that. I'll take a look right now. Juan writes, peace to the Saints. Homie said that saying my woman is ghetto. He can't be that stupid. Right. And again, it's the lies. And that's what we see in our political class, the lies. Shout out to Ramon. He writes, when he first brought up his grandmother, he stated she was the strongest woman he ever met. I noted that. I thought that was curious. And that his grandfather was even stronger than her. The contradiction, right? And this is the slow brain kind of stuff. and would often allow her to cuss him out. Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, see, you're like a punching bag for a broad. And these kind of effeminate males, they really never change. Even that time in the can, it didn't upgrade him. You see, this goes in line with a lot of things you hear about IQ, that it's fixed. It appears to be so. And I would even venture to say that EQ generally will be a function of upbringing, conditioning, environment, and IQ. And then at a level, we find that, people aren't able to control their EQ. If they don't have the intelligence and the conditioning, it's just, they're going to get out of control at some point. And it's these weak, effeminate males that the women may end up with because they get to dominate the male. And these sick women will seek an arrangement such as that, and they'll dominate the male. They'll be ultimately dissatisfied. And for that, they will cheat on this male. This is precisely what you essentially saw when I was having that conversation with the liberal white woman and her husband when we were at the Atlanta Beltline. Yes, indeed. This is the woman who pulled out her knockers, pulled them knockers out right in front of everybody, which was a display of having no respect for him, total emasculation. And it was also her making an advertisement for me. Just truly sick stuff. Carrying on.
My grandmother was smarter than most men I've ever seen. She was strong.
My grandmother was smarter than most men I've ever seen. Well, probably not. I highly doubt that, especially if she's connected to your DNA. But the fact of the matter is, why do you have the need to compare her to men in a superior hierarchical way, as opposed to merely stating that my grandmother was highly intelligent or my grandmother was one of the smartest persons I've ever met? You notice that there's a consistent effort to put the female, I should say misplace the female above the male. And this is a clear explanation of the kind of psyche that this individual has.
Stronger than most men I've ever seen. And my grandfather was stronger than her, but he never put his hands on her. He never put his hands on her. And she talked crazy. He never put his hands on her. He was a man. He was a strong adult man. And he never felt like.
And this is the kind of thing, this is matriarchal thinking right here. This is philosophy. And I want you guys to really follow me on this. Sometimes I hate having this level of knowledge and being able to see the world clearly. It is a burden. So the human female who is a feminist and a psychopath, it is upon her to remove the natural advantage of the male, one of which is intelligence and rationality. The other is physical strength. To deal with the man and dominate him mentally and otherwise, non-physically, it's not quite hard for her because they have the power of manipulation and of the looming prize of intercourse. And so they can use that to effectively manipulate men. With regards to the physicality, the woman cannot compete physically. And so what they're left to do is use their skills of manipulation to manipulate the legal system and manipulate culture, such that we have an unreasonable position that suggests that a woman can do no wrong that would require a man to take physical action. The reason that's particularly clever is because it wholly removes the advantage that the man has, and it removes his ability to set discipline and limits, which is ironic because all the while stopping the man from utilizing any physical response, women are constantly engaging physical responses, which are often not taken seriously, though they should be. Assault is assault. So that's a very clever thing. And then what they have to do is take this philosophy and implant it into the minds of the many. And what you hear, this dweeb right here, is repeating the thinking and talking points of the white liberal female, which is to say, a man is a great thing to be. And I've modified the definition of man to include these traits that are favorable to the unruly woman, which is to say, I'm defined as a man because I don't physically discipline a woman. I'm defined as a man because I allow a broad to talk crazy and reckless to me. I don't talk back to her that way. I don't do anything to stop it. I just take it because for some reason, my life is about being a punching bag for a psychotic broad. Extraordinary. Now, once you break that down, you're like, damn, that is that is kind of what they're doing. They're defining a man. The definition involves specific traits that are favorable to what women want and what women like. Not what women want and like to date you or to procreate with you, but rather what they want and like to control and manipulate you. Whereas to be a woman is not something that men are allowed to define. To be a woman has no components of the definition that are solely for the benefit of man. Come on now. Ramon further writes, he later said to a different topic, if your woman doesn't follow your lead, you should leave the relationship. It was at that moment I was sure he was just there to play with the big homie. Peace of saints. You know, the funny thing is that most people have no self-awareness, both male and female, and it is in their lack of self-awareness that we all suffer. The only good news is that at least, unlike most of the other people of similar IQ, he had some level of following, and so that increased the viewership. Whereas most people at that level come on and they have no following, so it's just really a massacre viewed by a minority of people. Shout out to Zachary. He writes, peace to you, sir. What were your expectations going into the conversation, sir? You know, frankly, I thought that his response to me on that Instagram thread, I thought it was unduly aggressive and negative. It was woefully uninformed, which is not unique. And I thought that I could estimate his culture, but I was unable to estimate his culture because the liberal white woman has been so highly effective in her brainwashing. And it only reminds me that I cannot trust people because they may appear to be similar, whether that appearance be of the hip hop clothing or the music they listen to or make, or their skin color or their geographical origin, like the city that they're from. So true to what I've said, we really have to stick to the ism. Be good to good people. You first must verify, is this a good person? 9 out of 9, it's not. And so before we've verified that someone is a good person, we basically have to look at everyone as the enemy. And truly, he showed himself to be such. And he was dedicated. He was very convicted of the filth. Furthermore, gentleman writes, were you surprised by anything after having the conversation? I was surprised at how far gone that fella is, but my understanding is that he was mentored by Charlemagne, who is a Skittle guzzler. And I think the unfortunate thing is that a lot of folks have on costumes, you know, Kevin Gates, Charlemagne, this fellow that we're referring to, they have on costumes. And it's to hide or mask the trauma that they've never gotten over and probably never will get over. And they're closeted and they're struggling. And unfortunately, they're letting the filth and poison leak out. And really, the goal of these types of persons is to convert you and I, the mentally healthy, to be understanding and to be like them. Yes, to behave and think like them. That is their actual goal, so that they can feel normal and they can feel accepted, even if they're not normal and what they're doing is not acceptable. Thank you for the question.
He had to overpower her or take or diminish her power for him to be great. I don't feel like I have to diminish any woman's power around me. I'm around strong, intelligent, beautiful, smart Black women every day of my life.
Extraordinary. Do we know if he's married to the mother of his first child? Is she a strong Black woman? Curious. The thing that's really important with these guys with this kind of outrageous language, just totally hyperbolic, is that the same beautiful, smart Black women that they refer to, it's like I never see them in real life. It's like, where are these women? And also, why aren't you married to these women? So this is it's almost like the happy Africa thesis. It's an exaggeration on the reality or on the state of a given people.
The most powerful Black woman in this country every day of my life. And I don't mind following them in certain situations.
And that's crazy. You see, there's two things I want you to note. Number one, yeah, it's assumed that no one is the leader 100% of the time in the 100% of the situations. But the driving force that you have to suggest that you want to be under a woman is very strange. Like you're probably the guy in the corner beating off, watching your old lady get the 1-2 by a real man. Not that a real man would participate in such a thing. Furthermore, we need to also take note of the fact that he was really using some dirty tactics. The debate started off in what I believe was good faith. And as I watch it back, I see that very quickly he sunk into dirty tactics. Immediately, he diverges from the agreed upon topic. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's talking about wife beating and woman beating, which is completely peculiar because I've never done that. I've never promoted that. And that had nothing to do with the topic. But his effort was basically to try to typecast me. And in fact, it was such a just dastardly, filthy, slimy thing to do. I'm almost like, did he come up with that? I don't think he came up with that. I'm like, does he have some handlers over there? Some like women coaching him? Because I just couldn't see a man thinking in such slimy ways. It's just profoundly slimy.
They follow me in certain situations because they know I'm strong enough to lead. Any leader is strong enough to follow. And if you think that you have to lead in every situation, then you've never really been a leader. And that is what you call a weak man's mentality. And it's a weak man mentality. It's not a.
Now, here's the funny thing. You'll notice he's telling us what a weak man is, but never once tells us what a weak woman is. And the irony is, just as we speak, he's never been the boss of anything. Now, he's never started anything of great meaning. You got to keep an eye on these males, especially these ex-cons. If they don't have a corporation that provides a product or service, which is to say a value add for which they're compensated, you need to be curious about like, how are they getting paid? If they're running a nonprofit and they're in the helping profession, well, that's a clear indication that their master is whoever the donor is. You know, it's the George Soros, it's the Open Society Institute, it's all of these liberal outlets that are moneyed, and they're, using this to take control of the Black people using the celebrity agent.
A white woman liberal is a weak man's mentality to believe that every room he's in and every time he's around a woman that he has to be in some position of power. No, I've been around women, like I said, who are stronger, who are doing more.
You'll also notice something consistent with those who are either actually women and or dim-witted. They repeat themselves a lot. He already said all of this.
Who are more educated, who are more or more artistic, who are more theological, who lead better, who are organized better. I've been around those women in my life. So
now here's the funny thing. He's talking to me like I was born yesterday. He's suggesting he's seen some rare breed of female that I've never seen in my many travels. I find it to be just completely pathetic and idiotic. It's like he's like somehow been exposed to some quality of woman that I'm just unaware exists. And it's even stranger because he's in New York, which is a cesspool. So in all likelihood, if you were to encounter a good woman, you'd probably find her in the Midwest, number one, in the South, number two, but certainly not on the coastal cities. So this is just utter nonsense.
Understand what that is. So when we talk about women, I understand that from my perspective, not from the white woman's perspective. When we talk about homosexuality, I've never seen a homosexual stop being a homosexual because I.
So in this part, he thinks that he's really cooking here. And instead of answering my questions earlier, which only indicates that this is a dishonest fellow, this is not a real man. Instead of answering my question when I said, hey, are you anti-Skittle Guzzler, neutral, or an ally? Now, mind you, it's kind of a trick question because neutral is an ally, you see. When they take that option, that is an ally, but he wouldn't even answer that. Now, I'm a man, I'm masculine, but he can't answer a yes or no question, can't answer a multiple choice question, can't answer in a straightforward way. That's number one. And then number two, he thinks he's cooking when he's talking about, my opinion of a homosexual doesn't stop them from being a homosexual. That may be true, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have an opinion just because it doesn't have an effect. Your thinking doesn't have an effect. It's like saying, Marquette, do you disagree with those who would abuse minors? And I said, well, me disagreeing with them isn't going to stop them from abusing minors. You see, this is the kind of silly illogic, but it sounds good. It's a specious argument.
I didn't like it, right? I was a 20 and 19-year-old person. My father was so anti-homosexual that he used to beat homosexuals up. I grew up until I was.
Now, that's weird. These are the kind of things like, and unfortunately, because my son clearly is a person who exaggerates, you almost wonder like, damn, is he lying about this? You just can't trust anything that he says. And you shouldn't have to. He really should be speaking to studies and to logic, but he's not, and he won't. And mostly because he can't. And when you're hearing him say things like this, I'm almost saying like, if your father was like going out of his way to sock out weirdos, like that's kind of strange. Like, was your father struggling with his sexuality? That's really weird. Why would anybody do that? Like, that's overboard. Now, I understand if the Skittle guzzler, tried to hand you a pack of Skittles, then, it's a different thing. So that's probably an exaggeration, and he's not a believable person.
Was a grown man, I started having conversations with homosexuals and realizing that the same way that I loved women and the same ideology, some of them was crying because they wish they weren't homosexual.
So the funny thing right here is this is when you know he's really lost, because what he's doing is he's trying to liken this sexually deviant behavior to normal behavior. He's trying to normalize it, in other words, and he's trying to drive empathy. And he's showing that he has empathy for it. And, there's some things we should empathize with. And there are other things that's kind of like, nah, bro, that's weird. It's like if you watch a movie and you see a guy like taking advantage of a woman and you're watching the movie and you're having empathy for the dude that's taking advantage of the woman. It's like, bro, you're kind of weird. Like you're supposed to have empathy for the woman. Like you're kind of getting it flipped around. Not everything you need to have empathy for. And I'm afraid that he's on the wrong side of it. You see, he's having empathy for a position that you should never want to imagine yourself in. You cannot compare something that's really beastly to something that ends in procreation. It ends in human life brought forward. You can't compare. I don't even know if I can use the word, but mud. Listen, there's so much censorship. It's crazy.
Right? Understanding that they believe that this is who they are. I had a different understanding. I don't have to agree with someone else's lifestyle, but I don't have to impose upon it. And because you kill.
Now, here's a funny thing. He says, I don't have to agree with their lifestyle. And then when I ask him, well, do you agree? He still won't say no.
And you make a law that says homosexuality is forbidden, it's not going to stop people from being homosexuality.
Now, he already said that. See,
because you don't call a person trans, they're not going to stop being trans because you don't like.
That's wild how he even brought that up. Like, that's another level of weird. Even though you have the LGBTQ, you have all these letters. There's levels to the strange nature of what they're doing. It's all mental, mentally ill, that is. But I'd say if I had to order them in terms of like least pathetic to most concerning, I'd say we got the lesbians at the bottom. Then we have the Skittle guzzling dudes. And then we have the Transformers at the top, like for sure. Like that's like the most just far out thing.
So what you should do is build your kings to be kings. Teach them what manhood looks like and raise them in your own image instead of worrying about what somebody else is doing.
So this is a very deceitful thing, and like very much so he's a snake for that kind of explanation. The idea that you can raise up young men and have total influence over them and have them not be impacted by what they see in the society, by the things that they hear, by the ideologies that are put forward, that is completely false. And the data indicates as much. So these are the kind of lies that they put forward. And so while they're telling you to live and let live, which is to say, don't do anything, just accept everything, don't try to exercise influence, while they're telling you to kick back, they're working diligently. They have Teach for America, teaching DEI, teaching critical race theory, teaching LGBTQ to children. They have Drag Queen Story Hour, and all of these different activities and efforts that they're putting forward so that they can go ahead and control the minds of the youth and the outcomes of the society. All the while, they're telling you, just kick back.
I don't have to kill you or impose upon your ideology or your life or your culture for me to be strong, because I'm a king in real life. So when people see me, they gravitate to me because I lead. I can go into the most dangerous communities in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Chicago, anywhere, and be treated like a man. I make people put their guns down because I move like a king, and that's what power is. So the ideology that you think that we have to.
So that right there, that's one of those things. It's one of those claims where it's like you can't really verify it. It's just kind of like, I don't even know why you said that. He's, I make people put their guns down. It's like, do you? Like where? It's like, really? Like were they? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I believe that.
Pose upon people who are weaker than us, who have different ideologies than us, is not manhood at all to me. I think what's weak in our community,
and again with the our community, there is no our community.
Women stop having respect for men is because they
notice he's always talking about what's wrong with men, but never does he broach what's wrong with women, or why men don't have respect for women, or why men would want to leave women. Doesn't broach that at all.
They see men think that you got to rule because you're more physically stronger than them. Men are not all men are not mentally stronger than women. Women have dealt with more pain and been through more shit. My mother went through more shit than I've ever seen any man go through. So you're not going to.
Is very funny too, because he's been in this heightened emotional state and sustained it for like 5 minutes. There's been no interruptions, no interjections at all. It's been completely uneventful, and he's still going, and doesn't know that he sounds foolish.
Tell me that men are just all the way stronger than women. That's not true. Physically, yes. And most of these weak men who don't have nothing else to provide but strength want to physically impose themselves upon women. And that's not manhood to me. So I always stand up against that. So yes, we have different ideologies. I do.
I should have asked him, like, was your mom beaten? Did your dad kick your mom's butt in front of you? Is that what happened?
Believe the black family should be led by men, but it has to be led by men and not males. Just your physical anatomy does not make you a man, because you can put your hands or physically.
It's so strange, because to listen to him talk, you would think the conversation was about domestic violence. You would think it would be about like power struggles between men and women. But in actual fact, the conversation that I arranged for us to have and we agreed on was about SNAP benefits. And this is the kind of deceptive nature. Knowing that he has no ability to compete intellectually, he goes straight for the emotional jugular and fails at it. I can't recall the last time I've had a debate and it was such a blowout that pretty much monolithically in the comments, people were like, yeah, this guy got obliterated. That's wild, considering how many mentally ill haters there are.
Do something to me doesn't make that you're stronger than me, or you have some level of hierarchy over to me. When you want to be a man, lead with your mind. Right? Because if you look at the strongest people in the world.
Now, again, this is how deep it is. You notice everything he keeps saying is like, set aside the physical. Physical strength doesn't matter. Physical strength doesn't matter. Don't use physical strength. Don't use physical strength. See what I told you guys before? That's the male's competitive advantage. Why does he keep saying, don't use one of your tools? Because that is the tool that empowers you, and it disempowers the female who's trying to take power over you. So he's saying never appeal to this tool. So then what you're basically allowing is for her and the children and whomever else to run all over you, because they know that there'll never be any serious consequence. And again, I'm not promoting to, give her a backslap that a Parker like a Cadillac, but I'm letting you know that all persons you have to deal with need to know that if there's a violation, there will be a demonstration. If they don't think that there's ever going to be a demonstration, I can guarantee you those violations will come, and they'll come with increasing frequency, and you'll find yourself being run over.
Hitler was 5'3", he led with his mind. If you look at people who had people that followed them, they led with their mind. So I understand that the strongest tool on a man is his mind, and a woman will submit to a man who has a mind. I don't have to hit a woman to make her do what I want her to do. I don't have to impose my will for my woman to do. And if you
the worst thing about black people, this is the world over, is that they've been miseducated so badly, and they're so easy to fool. This rascal said that Hitler was 5'3". He said that, and it's just like, why are you lying constantly? That these people, they they're nourished by lies. I don't know how they can survive on lies. He said Hitler was 5'3". He said that. I believe Hitler was 5'9".
In a relationship, and if you're in a marriage with a woman, so since you don't like the term partner, if you're in a marriage with a woman and you can't get her to submit to you because you are strong mentally and she believes in you, then you're in the wrong relationship, and you should find you another relationship. You should not stay there. You should not impose your will upon that woman. You should not threaten that woman. You should not have to do all of that shit. Your kid is supposed to follow you because they see strength in you. When you are a strong person,
but here's the most bizarre thing about this fool, and this fella is truly a fool. I've listened back to it, and it's like I've gotten angrier just listening to it because it was just so deceitful. Like, he is a devil. He is theirs. The devil owns and controls him. And you see, to listen to this debate, it's like, what are you arguing against, little buddy? Like, no one has said that women should be physically overcome, that they should be beaten, that they should be controlled, that they should be dominated. Even the title of the live session said we're debating about SNAP benefits. And so it's like, you're like, well, what is he arguing against? It's like, that's like me joining that debate and just out of nowhere, I'm like, you know what? The Corvette C8 is the best Corvette ever put out by and you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's how left field it was.
People see strength in you. You don't have to impose anything.
And the funny thing too is that I'm listening politely, and he's been going on for 5 minutes with no new argument.
And that's why we in a system with an oligarchy and a fascist who thinks that because he imposes his will upon somebody and say, you can't be that and you can't do that, and this is what this, and that's why the world is rejecting it. This ideology that you have, the world is rejected. So you can keep.
Now, the funny thing too, look at this psychopath. He says this ideology that you have. So what he's attempted to do just now is to suggest that I have fascist ideology, which is, that's special.
Go on with it if you want to, but the majority of the world is rejected it. If we want to talk about building up black families, we have to build black unities in respect and in partnership.
And this guy is so dim-witted, he doesn't realize that the very things he's describing are destructive to black families. EBT, female empowerment, feminism, all of this nonsense. This is precisely what has crushed the black family, but he's too stupid to know it. And that's why I want all of you guys to be keenly aware that much of what we're doing is not to persuade people who are imbeciles. They can't be persuaded. They're too dumb, and being stupid is evil. But rather, we're persuading the youth. We're persuading those who are undecided. We're gathering our tribe, which is the tribe of the intellectually gifted, and we're taking action. So it's not about persuading someone like Mysonne. He can't be persuaded. He's too dumb, and probably a pervert as well, because there's no reason that anyone would defend perversion at this level. I surmise that you could have a Skittle guzzler who's out of the closet who would not lobby as hard as Mysonne did.
Identifying the strength in women, finding you a partner who is equally.
Now, mind you, bro, been talking for 6 minutes straight, no interruptions.
Yoke with you. When you find a woman that you can look in her eyes and she sees the strength in you, the movie I like 300, right? I like 300.
This is the most idiotic example because he just basically referenced a woman who, for some reason, thought it was a good idea to sleep with one of the rivals of her husband, the king, while the king was out fighting for his own life and the life of his wife, his family, and the whole civilization. She just, for some reason, thought it would be a bright idea to get screwed by one of his rivals, all to no benefit.
And you're doing what I say because you're physically scared of me. Or I have to impose rules upon you that goes against your moral compass for you to be.
That's so funny because women don't have a moral compass for the most part.
So if that's the type of society that you think we need for black people to win, I don't want to be in that society.
And you're not invited either. That's an important part. You're not invited. And, if the revolution pops off, as I said during the live stream, I'll drive a spear through your heart myself personally.
I want to be in society with people. I don't want you to be in my community around me out of fear. I don't want that. And the real kings and people who really led that I follow, they didn't need that.
You'll notice he doesn't name any of them, mind you, because it's liberal white women.
So, if that's what you believe is is going to bring black unity back and black community back and back.
And the other funny thing is, it's like dumb people have a hard time listening. Dumb people are such terrible listeners. He says black unity. I never talked about bringing back black unity back. I didn't talk about that. I never talked about that.
Back foundation and family back. We just have two totally different ideologies, and I respect yours.
Now, mind you, he said we have two totally different ideologies. You can hear him right there say it. Then later on, you'll hear him say that he doesn't have any ideology. I kid you not.
But I'm standing with mine.
Again, I want everyone to note that Mysonne again has suggested that I've promoted laying your hands on women. I've never done that my entire life. And I also, now here's the trippy thing. Just imagine this imbecile has been talking for 6 minutes straight. You hear me? 6 minutes straight. I've not said a single thing. I let him go on and on and on in his inarticulate rambling. And then I start talking for 10 seconds and he's already interrupting. It's extraordinary. You're interrupting me at this time, sir, if I might complete a sentence. I've never done that in my entire life. I've never promoted it. I've had no experience with that. And this is how we know for sure that you're representing the white woman liberal ideology, because the main thing that you hear them talking. And there he is interrupting again.
May
I complete a sentence?
We said about respect.
Interrupting again.
Stop equating me with anything that has to do.
Now, here's the funny thing. This is also very much so with the leftists and the women too. They try to decide which words you're allowed to use. Don't dead name me. Don't misgender me. Try to decide which words you're allowed to use, what you can say. They're masters of censorship. And so what he's attempting to do is saying, I feel disrespected. You can't use those words. You can't call me that. I feel disrespected. Nigga, you can feel how you want to feel.
A white woman. All right. So just
what's their ideology? You see, it's their ideology.
I would take a liberal ideology, but don't equate nothing that.
No, they're the ones. We're in a matriarchy.
Once again, I've explained to you that I've never been around white women, so I don't have a white woman.
You don't have to. Even if you're around black women, even if you're around black women, you're still around liberal white woman ideology. That's what you're not catching up with. Black women today are the result. Bro's emotional. Now, here's the irony. I sat there and listened to this fool speak for 6 whole minutes. Now, mind you, I don't think anyone's ever paid him to speak. He's not like a particularly engaging person to listen to. I listened to this fool for 6 minutes. And he's so masculine. I'm a man. Don't call me a woman. Why do you keep getting emotional like a woman and interrupting?
Like liberal. My mother hated all
white. You keep on speaking while I'm talking.
You.
And then this is the other bizarre things. Like, my mother hated, word to your mother, my mother hated all white people. My mother hated all white people. My mother hated all white people. You know what I'm saying? It's like, buddy, like, why the racism? Like, where is that coming from? That has nothing to do with this conversation. This is not, in fact, a conversation about white people. Certainly not a conversation about hating any people. This is very strange. It's that need to go to the extreme to justify his position. It's the inclination of the liar, knowing that they have very little credibility. And so they go to the nth degree to try to be believed. They cry wolf. My mother hated all white people. Yeah, okay. What's the relevance of that?
Because what you're doing,
I didn't interrupt you like this.
You're not interrupting me.
I didn't interrupt you like this.
You're saying things that we already started.
I didn't interrupt you like
respect.
this. You were positioning me as a woman beater, and I didn't even interrupt you. That part. You positioned me like I'm Ike Turner, and I let you keep going.
I didn't say you. I said that part. Ideology. I didn't say that you ever put your hands on me.
I never said that's my ideology. You can go to thesassin.com, THESASN.com, and click what is Marquettdavon, and you won't see one thing about laying a hand on a woman. So that's not my ideology.
You said that in this conversation. You just said if a woman speaking to you like a man and she feels like she's equal, then I will punch you in the face. You said I would black.
I did not say that.
You said if
you're incorrect.
Certain things,
and this is again, you find this with the Democrats. This is mudslinging.
You didn't say that.
This is mudslinging.
So
is
that
what this
wasn't the
is.
terminology.
This is mudslinging.
So explain to me what you said then.
So you have to calm down and remember the fact that I had the floor. So you don't interrupt me and then start asking me questions while I'm talking. So now, mind you, this is masterful reaction. And these are the things I talk about in the Master Communicator course, because someone like this who's basically put a full blitz on you while you're trying to think and speak and process, this can destabilize a lot of people. It can distract them. It can take them off track. And so having the cognizance of what they're doing and being able to run appropriate defense on it is important. So first you interrupted, you said you were clarifying something. And then you went, I've not tried to disrespect you. I've not tried to disrespect you.
It was disrespectful.
No, you're letting me know that you're offended by it, and that's fine. Sometimes we'll get offended. I'm offended by the fact that you are suggesting that I promote the idea of laying a hand on a woman when I've never done anything of the sort. Oppositely, I recommend people to leave the woman if it ever comes to anything like that. So yeah. Now, the funny thing, and this is very womanly, that he's suggesting that because I'm offended, you can't say that. Doesn't matter if that is true or factual or accurate or descriptive. My feelings are hurt, so you can't say that. Very, very feminine in a bad way. And yet he still believes himself to be a man because the way he's defining a man is based on what liberal white women and gender feminists have told him. Shout out to Wayne, writes, more tuition for the good analysis. I appreciate you, Wayne. Been a while since folks supported. Thank you, sir. And thank you to all of you who are watching. I appreciate you being here with me on kick.com. Let's work. I find that offensive, but not so offensive that I become emotional like a woman and then start interrupting. There have been times that you were talking and I said, may I ask you this?
Or you're going back to the same thing. And this is what I'm
emotional.
Why do you
emotional?
Because you're saying I'm being emotional.
Emotional.
And I'm telling you.
You are being emotional.
So that because we can stop the conversation. If you don't think that you can move forward without comparing me to a woman, then we can stop.
I'm telling you that we're all in a matriarchy right now. We're in a matriarchy, which is a female. Now he was basically threatening to run and escape the conversation because he can't handle the pressure. And these broads, they usually get the male to back down. You see, I'm talking about literal females. So they get the beta males to back down because the beta male still wants to sleep with them and has limited options. And so this broad, he keeps on whining and complaining, thinking that I'm going to be like, oh yeah, okay. I'll stop saying that because you're hurt. Nah, hell nah. Led society. And in a female-led society, women control the culture and the ideology. And what I'm expressing to you is that I believe you are victim of that ideology and that the ideas you're sharing with me reek of that ideology. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. The male versus the female, we have a different nature. For example, females tend to be ones who want to bring people together. They're more accepting and they're all about equality. Conversely, the quintessential male personality and psyche is more about hierarchy and inequality and establishing dominance.
Well, who said that?
This is psychology. We can read all of the basics in psychology. There are traits that are typical of the human female and the human male. And, this is one of the challenges when you're talking to people who are uneducated. And the irony is that a lot of these commentators on YouTube are not very educated. You have a handful of them that are very knowledgeable and well schooled, but then you got guys like Joe Rogan, and no disrespect to Rogan, he's a great conversationalist, but they have this everyman appeal. And a part of it is often the fact that they're not formally educated. They're college dropouts, like Molestany, college dropouts. These are people who are not competent enough, persistent enough, in some cases smart enough to take a basic degree. And yet they're on the internet espousing all of these ideas. But the funny thing is that when you're dealing with those who are uneducated, there are basic understandings that we would have had the person got a basic bachelor's degree, and they would have learned these items in their first 2 years called like general studies, before you declare a major. So when he's saying things like, well, where'd you get that? Psychology 101, my dear boy. Psychology 101, like the first psychology course where they talk about the basics of the human mind and the human psyche and personality. And then they draw a line and say, these are chiefly male characteristics. These are chiefly female. Yes, it's Psychology 101, which is a basic course that most people are going to take in their first 2 years of university or even their first 2 years at a community college. But when you're talking to people who got jail degrees, then they're questioning things that are just so fundamental and it's commonly accepted. For example, being neurotic, that's more of a female trait. Being dominant, that's more of a male trait. There's even a book written by a woman. And for those of you who would like to check out the book, you can find it on Amazon.com/shop/The Saint, the Sinner. And it's written by a woman. And it talks about how women in corporate can fit into male culture because male culture used to dominate in corporate, and that's changing. And when you look at HR, it's mostly women. Why? Because that's a perfect job for women because women have different wiring than men. Women love complaining. They're neurotic. They're detail oriented, and they're empathetic. So HR is perfect. They want to hear all of your complaints and the gossip, and they want to. I'm gonna, So it's perfect for the female personality, and that's why those HR ladies do so much goddamn damage. Shout out to Anthony. He writes, "Peace of Saints. Were you still going to do the 5-part series on friendships?" Oh, absolutely. 100%. In fact, I was thinking about that today. I think I probably ought to go ahead and pick out a date, probably in the near term, to do lesson 1. So I should probably get after that. And, particularly because I have Saints weekend. And then after that, I have a business trip that I need to take abroad. And so, yes, I think it'd be wise to get that on the board. So, so I'm gonna go ahead and set that up. Probably start that around, I think 5 p.m. Eastern Standard would be a good time of day to start that. So keep an eye out. And now, yes, and there's a little bit of background work I need to do. I need to dig up some old videos that relate to this. I want to premiere those just to jog people's memories on things. So I'm going to make that a task. Sometimes when you have a lot to do, just identifying the immediate next task. So I'm going to say my immediate next task is find past videos to premiere. Okay, great. Thank you for that reminder, that encouragement. Carrying on. And just the fact that you're questioning me on the differences between the male and the female, this is gender feminist ideology suggesting that we're the same. We're not the same. Now you ask, why am I suggesting that you have feminist mentality? Is because earlier you went out of your way to describe, I know so many women are strong, and my grandmother was stronger than so-and-so, and the guy from 300, King Leonidas, couldn't make a call without looking at his wife. And you've gone to great lengths to explain that the woman has to lead at some point. And what I'm telling you is the good news for you is that what you believe in is dominant right now. It's dominating right now throughout the Western civilization. And that is why Western civilization is in decline. Hello. So I'm going to get back. Look at the little rascal. He looks completely drained of all life when he has to sit and listen. Shout out to Dominic. He writes, "Peace of the Saints. How do you maintain staying in the present? I always find myself either dwelling on the past or daydreaming about the future. Appreciate all the work that you do." Well, the key is to make sure that the present is an exciting place. Make sure that you're doing the correct things, the things that you're meant to do. And, I was just thinking earlier that there are, in fact, very few things that can excite me. There are very few things that I'm excited to do. So when I do something and I find that I'm immersed, I don't want to come out. You hear me? When I'm going in, I don't want to come out. And so I'll persist with something. Like recently, I've been building some technology, and I've been, fairly persistent and obsessive about it, which is always how I work, especially with tech products. And I was thinking, maybe I should do this or do that, or, not spend so much time just doing this one thing. And, I have the opportunity to do that now because Donald Trump crashed some of my import businesses. But then I was like, no, this is probably the best use of my time, especially if I were to drop dead. I'm doing something that I wanted to be immersed in. I'm doing something that I wanted to be immersed in, whether it pays, whether, people like it, whether it involves meeting women. I'm doing something that I'm actually, it's capturing my mind. So making sure that you have a worthwhile occupation, something that's going to excite you. And for me, if I'm not doing something big, it's just not even interesting. And so for me, a component of doing something big is the risk. The risk has to be there, because when the risk is there, the reward is also there. So it has to be worth swinging the bat. If I'm going to swing the bat, I'm swinging for the fences. I'm swinging for the home run. I don't even want to pick up the bat if I'm going to try to get on base. It's just not it's not worth it for me. It doesn't move me. With regards to the past is irrelevant. You don't get it back. The future is uncertain. It doesn't really exist. And so the best thing you can do to have peace is to immerse yourself in a worthwhile, interesting present. If you have the Boston University, I highly recommend you review it. This is probably a good time for that because it helps you settle into an exciting present. To my earlier points before I was interrupted. And again, I want everyone to know, for those of you guys watching, I want you guys to know, like, to be honest with you, if I saw the gentleman in real life, I probably wouldn't have this conversation. I'm having this conversation where we're kind of splitting apart ideas. But if I had this, saw the brother in real life, I probably want to sit for a meal or splitting apart ideas. But if I had this, saw the brother in real life, I probably want to sit for a meal or hear what he has going on or go check out his organizations, things like that. I wouldn't debate him. I'd more so be interested in where do we intersect and how can we do some work together. I just want everyone to know that for the record. This is an important part. I'd have to amend that at this time, figuring out with the course of the interview, I find out that we're just nothing alike. But the important nugget of wisdom that you should be able to take from that, and shout out to Frank supporting the work, came in via the Stripe link. The nugget of wisdom that you should take is that I don't spend my time out in the world debating. Every now and then there's an imbecile, and these people are probably just lonely souls. They'll DM and they'll say, oh, hey, I wanted to discuss X, Y, and Z with you. And my team will be like, okay, yeah, we'll set you up to debate on a live stream. They're like, oh, no, I just wanted to talk about it. And it's like, I'm not your friend. Like, I don't know you, and I don't want to know you. That's the important part. Is like, I don't know you, and I don't want to know you. I've always been very clear. I only have an interest in people that are really a part of this thing of ours, people who are members. If you're not a member, it's Sasson or nothing. If you're not Sasson, you're nothing. And I really feel that when I'm going to live by that. But it's just so strange that people think that I have time or interest to debate abstractions. It's like, no, I don't have the interest, and I won't take the time. These are lonely people. And out in the world, I'd never utilize time, especially to talk to someone like Mysonne, because he's not someone of consequence. His ship has sailed long ago. And so it wouldn't even make sense to debate him, because he's not going to be a person of consequence. His best effort is to, catch a check, being a part of some nonprofit controlled by some nice white lady. And furthermore, I want people to know that I wouldn't disrespect him to his face, because I do respect him. So yeah, that was long gone. I damn sure went into the conversation with respect. In fact, before he was a podcaster, as a rapper, I was familiar with him as a rapper, you see. So I thought he was like from the culture that I come from, but he's gone. He's gone. Yeah, there needs to be a term for that. When you just be snatching niggas' souls. These white ladies are snatching niggas' souls out here. For everyone watching it, I don't think that, he's someone to be disrespected, and I don't intend to disrespect him. He may feel disrespected, but I don't have any intention of that. I have respect, but I have very strong disagreements. Now, if there was a revolution popped up, hell yeah, I'm gonna have to run you through with a spear. You dig? And that's always something that I think people might think that I'm joking when I say if the revolution pops off, I have to run you through with a spear. And when you say run someone through, that means like to impale them with a sword or a spear, what have you, whatever you have at your disposal. But no, I'm serious, meaning like if the revolution pops off and there's civil war, whatever form of war, then you're in a state of war and lawlessness. And at that point, I will try to stack up as many carcasses of the wicked as humanly possible. And certainly he'd be on the hit list. But as we're under a civilization with laws and what have you, for the time being, we'll engage one another civilly. But the only appropriate way to engage such persons who are unreasonable is, with a spear piercing their hearts. And I think probably people think that I'm joking or being hyperbolic just because I say it in a fairly monotone way. The only reason I'm saying it in a monotone way is because I am a monotone person, but I mean every bit of it. But as it stands, we just disagree and we're pulling apart our ideas. And again, I truly believe that we're in a matriarchy. Yeah, I'm gonna have to run you through. Now, if there's strong disagreements, I have respect, but I have very strong. I have respect, but I have very strong disagreements. I have very strong disagreements. Now, if there was a revolution popped up, hell yeah, I'm gonna have to run you through with a spear. You dig? But as it stands, we just disagree and we're pulling apart our ideas. And again, I truly believe that we're in a matriarchy, and the ideas that you're sharing are liberal white woman ideas. And I'll justify it right now. And it's not to put you down. It's just to explain. Now, here's an important piece to observe, and this is when you're dealing with broads, whether it's in fact, it's a female broad or it's just a broad that's acting like a broad. And, he kept complaining, don't call me that, don't call me that. And I never said, no, I'm not going to call you a liberal white woman. I was like, no, you in fact are a liberal white woman, and here's 5 reasons why you're a liberal white woman. This is actually quite an important part of the discussion because it's evidence-based. It's like, here, let me give you 5 clear examples. That's where your ideas come from, as do the ideas of most Black women. Here's the examples. Liberal white woman. If I asked a liberal white woman, now, unlike you, I've been around a lot of liberal white women. I graduated from the University of California, Berkeley. It was filled with them. Word. They nasty too. But anyways, that liberal white woman, are you for Barack Obama or against Barack Obama? They'd be like, I'm for him. Okay, boom, that's liberal white woman. Liberal white woman, are you for the independent woman or are you against the independent woman? She'd be like, I'm for the independent woman. That's liberal white one. Right. You also said live and let live with regards to the LGBTQ. I'd say liberal white woman, are you for the live and let live, or do you believe that there should be order, rules, and rules? She'd say, no, live and let live. Okay, that's liberal white woman. You also talked about female empowerment, namely the woman getting independent of the man using Snap as instrumentality for such. Liberal white woman, do you agree that the woman should be able to get independent of the man and use Snap benefits to get out from under him? Yes, she'd say yes. All of the things that, and then liberal white woman, do you use the term partner, or do you think that term destroys the foundations of natural relations, such as the term boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife? Do you use partner instead? She said, yes, I use partner instead. Those are all liberal white woman things that came from the liberal white woman thought factory and that are now coming out of your mouth. And one thing I know for damn sure, and I ain't even got to ask you the question today because I know the answer. You wouldn't have talked like this 15 years ago, 20 years ago. This is all new language. And damn sure, being a Black man from the real part of New York, you wouldn't have talked like this. And for damn sure, in our culture, in Black culture, before we were victim of whites tearing it out of us and forcing into us what they want us to believe. Liberal whites. There's no way in hell if I said, are you against, are you neutral, or are you an ally of the Skittle Guzzlers, you would have did any tap dancing. You'd be like, hell nah. Why? Hell nah. Believed. That's what your father believed. That's what your grandparents believed. And that's what we all believed until that was torn out of us. Yeah, that is not natural to the Black people. That is liberal white woman ideology. And I know it because I've lived in Baltimore. I've lived in Chicago. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've lived in San Francisco. Let's go. I know the souls of Black folks, and that is not us. That is liberal white woman written all over it. And so all the things that I named. Now, the funny thing is he had just got finished telling me, like, don't call me a liberal white woman. Now I'm yelling at him, like, you're a liberal white woman. It's like, bro, like, you're not going to get off here. 5 separate points that you espouse that a liberal white woman would agree with 100%. That's why I say that's where your ideology comes from. My ideology comes from lived experience. I'll be 50 years. And that's just like, that's dumb nigga central. My ideology comes from lived experience. This nigga think he part of the locks. You heard me? Shout out to the old heads who know what I'm talking about, living off experience. My ideology comes from lived experience. Shut up, your lying ass. Ladies and saints, I'll give you a little bit of time to send in your comments, questions as we wind down here. Years old on May 16th, right? And I've been in, I pretty much traveled all over the world. I've been in. I let them slide on that. There's a lot of things I let them slide on. I was trying to be not so mean, but when he said I've traveled all over the world, I'm like, to where? To where? Where have you traveled all over the world? I don't believe that.
In every scenario that you can name, I've been in prison, I've been in college, I've been in the hood, I've been in the White House, I've been in.
Now this is crazy right here. He said, I've been in the White House, and you see me being a gentleman, I try to give him, or shall I say me being a saint, I try to look for the positive and give him some kudos. Like, oh, you've been in the White House. Very good.
Every boardroom.
Damn, you've been in the White House?
Yeah, I've been.
Would you mind telling us about that?
Well, I didn't go to the White House. They locked me out. I was invited to the White House.
Okay. Then it turns out, as soon as you ask them for some details, I haven't been to the White House. It's like, damn, dog, you gonna get on in front of 100,000 people and lie? That's what we doing? You get in front of 100,000 people and tell lies, and you didn't correct yourself. I asked you on some positive stuff, and then you corrected. Wow, that's embarrassing. And as was stated in the comment section, that's like saying, no, I've not been married, but I have been engaged 4 times. It's like, okay, well, that's not the same thing. You see, that's not the same thing. Somebody asked you if you've been married, don't say yes when you've just been engaged 4 times.
Let me, because
I ain't even got an invite, bro. They ain't been invited me. You heard me.
Invite you to off the list because of the work that we're doing in the community for.
Now he said I got an invite because of the work we're doing for the community. Number 1, who is we? And then number 2, it only verifies what I was talking about. You're plugged in with the liberal white women and the Democrats and the leftists. And that's how you get all of these privileges, and you can't speak against your masters.
Anti-violence. We actually.
Well, you better than me, because they damn sure ain't invited me. I don't think I'm going to get an invite, but I just want to give you your respect on that, because it's very prestigious. Carry on.
Yeah. So, I've been pretty much around the world, and I've learned, right? So, they say as a boy, you think is a
funny thing is, and here he is with like a threadbare quote that, just we've all heard in like corny movies. This is the sign of someone who's not read. They're not able to quote anything from, meaningful literature, nor can they come up with their own quotations. But bro still thinks he's a quotologist here. The other funny thing is that he keeps on with this man stuff. It's like, bro, you're a Skittle guzzler. You support Skittle guzzling, and you support women controlling you, bro. Like, knock it off. Like, you could say you're a man as many times as you want, but niggas don't respect you. Like, point blank, period. Shout out to Jay, came in by Venmo. He writes, peace to the saints, showing respect for the Mysonne debate. I appreciate you. And it was really a slaughter. And he was really just getting lectured, but he didn't even realize it, because there was no education coming from his side. I don't mind learning something from someone who's knowledgeable, even if we disagree, but there's just no value add from his side.
Boy, but as a man, you think as a man. So what happened for me is that I started to learn different things, right? So I grew up, like you said, in the communities where we thought certain things, where we outcasted the gay person.
Right. So now you're telling me that now that you're hanging out around liberal whites, everything you've ever known is wrong? Like they taught you everything you've ever known is wrong? What was the proof that it was wrong? Huh? Shout out to Reginald. He writes, tuition Marquettdavon is truly the best of us. Peace of saints. I appreciate that. And shout out to those of you, birds of a feather flock together. You dig? We got all the top dogs out here. We're organizing for the leadership class. I also acknowledge Alvin, who just got basic training on school.com/Marquette. And obviously click classrooms, and that's where you can find all that content. Also, for those of you who are members, we just posted up the SAS in Atlanta security detail debrief, very educational. So definitely take a look at that. It's going to get your mind right, just in terms of your own daily militance that you should have. And also for the case of you having to organize the security detail, be a part of a security detail. And, you may need to call in these services from the assassin at some point. Maybe you're having a birthday party, or you're doing something big, or what have you. And hopefully many of you become dignitaries and such.
Casted the people that weren't like us. We felt like we were dominant over women, right? And then I started to watch women make decisions that made more sense than the men that were supposed to be in control.
Here he goes again with the pro-woman, anti-man. Not one time has he said anything critical of women. And that's fine. Women have some great qualities, right? We have to acknowledge that, but there's just no balance. There's no balance. And that's where we have to be suspicious, because we know that someone's telling lies. When they paint a picture that is too rosy about men or about women, we know that they're a liar. Just like when you have some personalities on the internet, they paint a picture of black people, it's all bad. They're like, God damn, niggas be messing up, but I don't know if they're constantly and exclusively messing up. And then there's no criticism of the dominant culture. Then you're like, I see what's going on. This is a bootlicker.
I started watch women actually, when we look at our communities and black men are in jail and they're leaving the women out here, the women at home taking care of the kids, and so.
Now it's funny because he was one of those dudes in jail, right? So it's like, bro, are you a hypocrite? Is that the word? Shout out to Wayne. He writes, at what point did you lose respect for him, if I may ask? It was at the point in which I realized that he's not like us. It's at the point that I realized that not only is he not like us, he's completely abandoned our culture, which is to say the black culture. And he not only has abandoned it, now he is truly a white supremacist, not white across the board, but like white liberal supremacist. But he's so twisted up mentally that he finds them to be superior, us to be inferior. But he's so twisted up mentally that he thinks that he has to learn from them. He has to go to them to get handouts. And then on the back end, he's over here like, my mother didn't like no white people. You know what I'm saying? My mother didn't like no white people. You know what I'm saying? I only knew 2 white women. And it's like, hold on, dog. Nigga, the people who run your nonprofit are white. The people who invited you to the White House are white. You know, the people who created your ideology are white. So it's like out of one side of your mouth, you're talking greasy about, but out the other side of your mouth, like they're your employer, you know? So it's just when I realized the level of confusion and the fact that he discarded our culture as though it's something disposable, you know, like one of those cameras that you use and have a good time with. And then once you can't spin that little wheel anymore, you just toss it. And, you know, and in tossing it into the garbage, he looks down on our culture. Like there's something wrong with our culture. Couldn't respect it.
So-called leader, because of his emotions, because somebody stepped on his shoe, was shooting a dude. And his wife said, what are you doing? Why would you go up there and shoot him? Right? The woman was smart enough to know that.
No, that's probably, you know, one of the few good points that he made, which is women are sometimes good at de-escalating things, but also he failed to balance that with the reality that a lot of niggas end up dead because of broads. And it's not even because of legitimate reasons. It's because of manipulation and deceit. So it's like for every good point he made, of which there were 2 in a space of 2 hours, he was making 1 good point per hour. He would fail to give the true balance, with the truth, in other words.
Into the community. And I started to listen to women and started to see that my life was moving.
What a dweeb. I started to listen to women
better than I was listening to overly emotional men who thought that their ego meant they had some level of power. So I understand that there was a balance, right? So I understand that I needed a woman who had the intellect and the foresight and the emotional.
So what he's really conceding to is that he's a weak, unconfident, uncertain black male, which is not uncommon, and he needs a woman to lead him. That's what he's basically saying. He's weak and inadequate. He needs a woman to lead him because he doesn't know what to do. That's all he's telling us right here. And it's quite sad. Shout out to 7. He writes, Elon's pay package is quite ambitious. I'm referencing the goals he must accomplish to receive the stipend, not necessarily the dollar amount. However, how do you think autonomous vehicles will affect the auto insurance industry going forward? There are some examples. Like, for example, there's something called errors and omissions insurance that various businesses can get. And this is if you make a mistake in your business and it's a costly mistake, the insurance will cover you. Unfortunately, in some businesses, it's kind of required. I've had some businesses where you had to have it. I didn't want it, frankly. But I say that to say this. When human beings make errors and omissions that may cause the business to be sued or to be liable, a human being, being that we're doing things manually, and there's one of us and we move, not terribly quickly, it's a manageable risk. Whereas insurers having to deal with AI or having to deal with scale that can be created by autonomous vehicles or anything that's all machine, it's going to be difficult for the insurance companies. And I said years ago, and I was the only person to say this, that I believe the current insurance companies will have trouble adjusting. Some of them will die, even though insurance is a great business, not as the consumer, but as the business owner. You're going to have companies that offer the autonomous vehicles. They're going to offer the insurance because they understand the software behind it. They truly can measure the safety. And you're going to have the AI companies are going to be offering their own insurance as opposed to traditional insurers. That is where the industry is no doubt going. The industry itself may have not figured that out yet, but it is the only thing that makes sense. And if you need an example, of what I mean, like, let's say that you have a fleet of 1,000 cars, right? Just all of a sudden, I'm rich. I got a fleet of 1,000 cars, and if I'm going to use human drivers, it's going to take me time to train people. It's going to take me time to get them in the cars, make sure that they have all the appropriate documentation, insurance, etc. So as I already bought $1,000 or 1,000 car fleet, it takes me time to onboard people. Maybe my training is inadequate, and so I do some bad training, and 3 of my drivers get into car accidents or disagreements or compromising situations with women, and then we get sued for those 3 situations. But being that everything is pretty much being done by human beings, meaning there's a level of slowness, we can catch the problem, fix the problem before it propagates fleet wide. Conversely, if I had 1,000 self-driving vehicles that I purchased and acquired straight away, and then we put them on the road and they're all using the same software, whatever software glitch in the AI or just software without AI, which certainly this will probably be AI enabled, whatever glitch it has that maybe causes car accidents, or it causes these self-driving cars to drive through a crime scene or drive through a barricade, like a police created barricade, like an impromptu barricade. Whatever software flaw causes that, it's going to happen at scale, all simultaneously, fairly quickly, in a way that's, not gradual. And for that reason, you can have a lot of tragedies happen in short order, and the company won't be able to recover financially, and probably an insurance company wouldn't want to cover that level of risk. Shout out to Jay. He writes, Marquette, is there a debate between you and Nick Fuentes on the horizon? I doubt it, because he's probably smart enough to know that only I can win in that debate, and I mean that in every sense of the word, because Nick Fuentes knows that not only am I good with the facts and the figures, as he is, I have to concede that, but I also am more clever than he is. And I also know how to entertain, and I'm a master of the invective. And because of that, he just can't win, because he won't be able to joust verbally. He may be able to marshal some facts, and also his understanding of history is very limited. He's decent with regards to current events. I'm good with current events too, but history, I'll obliterate him. And we can see that in the ignorant comments that he's known to have made. And he's similar to a Charlie Kirk, smarter and more knowledgeable than Charlie Kirk, no doubt, which is not hard to do. But yeah, he'd be a body bag, and it would only skyrocket me. And so I don't think he wants to do that. It would actually be the smartest thing for him to pretend as though he hasn't declined 3 times. That would be, wise on his part. And I think that he'll make the wise decision. He's no fool. But we find consistently that the white supremacists are pretty scary characters, like very cowardly characters. We also had reached out to Steven Crowder. He made some foolish comments. And I had a personal contact reach out to Steven Crowder, a personal contact who many people have called a white supremacist. And he told me that Steven Crowder was scared. And I was like, that makes sense. Not that Steven Crowder said, I am scared, but Steven Crowder basically started tap dancing and making excuses. And that makes sense.
Intelligence to tell me that my ego should not supersede my intelligence. So that's what became a partner for me, because she possessed things that I needed for me to be great. And I possessed things that amplified her to grow to where she was. So it was a partnership. It was no hierarchy for me.
Wow.
So those are things that.
So when he says there's no hierarchy, he's saying that I wasn't the leader. I wasn't on top. We were seeing eye to eye. Now, this is weak man talk. Of course, when you come out of the feds and you don't have a dollar to your name, you're just some broke nigga. And you don't have a reputation. You don't have a business. You don't have business skills. And you don't even have hustle, right? And so as a result, he came in down bad. And so he's operating from the position of the weak male. But what people often do is rather than acknowledge that he's in a weak position, whether it's temporary or not, he suggests that, well, this is how we all should get on, because he would absolutely hate for him to be equal with his old lady. And then he see me with my old earth and I'm having it my way. You heard me? I'm having it my way like Burger King. Yeah, he'd hate that. So the effort is to lower you to his way of living like a peon. And, peasants hate to see kings. You dig? Yeah. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. Now, me personally, that's not my heart. I love to see people shining. I love to see people winning. But, a peon, they're going to hate it every time they see it, man. It's class warfare. You dig? Ladies and saints, it's been a pleasure having this little bit of time to fellowship with you all. Until next time, peace to the saints.